Times are tough, but that doesn't mean you or your family should go hungry. That's why today we're talking about the most slept on food hack: rice and beans. I'm just gonna lay here today for a minute. I'm tired. Now the beauty of rice and beans is that most of the time they just sit back and act like a side character. But baby, if you treat them right, they have main character energy. So let me show you how. And we're gonna be cooking an entire pound. An entire pound of rice today. We are feeding your whole family for this price. Now we're gonna start off here by roughly chopping up an onion. I'm using a yellow onion today, but that was what was on sale. So if a white onion was on sale, I'd use that. If a red one was on sale, I'd use that. Use what you have access to. It's not the end of the world if you have to use one versus the other. And don't worry about your cuts being perfect or even really symmetrical. It's all gonna cook down, it's all gonna be melted away, and it's gonna taste just the same. This is not the time for you to be worried or stressed about making it picture perfect. And once those are cut up, we're just gonna go ahead and move those to the side. And then we're gonna break up our garlic. Now I'm using about 4 cloves of garlic here, but you are more than welcome to use more. You're more than welcome to use less. I would recommend not using less because garlic's great, but if you have some distaste or aversion to garlic, then don't use garlic. And also don't feel any shame for using garlic. Like, you can use the jarred stuff. Yes, it's not as flavorful or as vibrant as fresh garlic, but if that's what you have, that's what you can do. To get it done, that's fine. Like, don't let anybody tell you otherwise. The whole point of this is just for you to be able to cook something delicious to feed you and your family, and garlic should not stop that. Now I'm just gonna bring these to the edge, and I'm just gonna give them a quick crush, and then I'm gonna run my knife through them just to break it up a little bit more. Just like the onions, it doesn't have to be perfect, just roughly chopped. And then once all that's done, you're just gonna move it over with your onions. Now these next two things are optional. I like them because they add bulk and they add flavor to your rice. First one is a carrot. Now some people will tell you that carrots don't belong in a Mexican red rice, and that's totally fine if that's what they think. But carrots are cheap, affordable, good for you, and they fill up your rice. They give you more volume, more flavor for very low cost. And you don't even have to use a fresh carrot. You can just use frozen carrots. You can use those frozen bags of peas and carrots and all that stuff. Go for it. I'm not using peas today because I don't like peas, and I'm gonna end up eating all this, so we're not putting peas in it. But don't let that stop you. You put peas in it if you like. And now that we've got a good amount of carrot, we're just gonna line these up because we're gonna wanna cut them into matchsticks, and then those matchsticks into a nice little dice. I don't know why I said it with such finesse, but I liked it. I think it's also really important to specify that yes, I do not like peas. I really do not like peas, but I also don't like carrots. But cooking them this way in such a fashion, you can't taste them. You're not getting a carroty taste. You're just getting the nice sweetness from the carrot, and you're getting the texture, but you're not tasting like steamed gross carrot, because that I'm not a fan of. But in a nice rice, they're hidden well. It's a good one to trick kids. Now once those are all nice and cubed up, we're just gonna go ahead and place those to the side, separate from our onions and garlic, because we're not going to cook these down at the same time. And for our last filling, we have corn. I'm using canned sweet corn. This is the one that was on sale. You don't have to use this one. You can just use a smaller can, because I'm only about to use half of it. You don't need the whole thing. This is a 15-ounce can. Grab an 8-ounce can if you have it. And we're gonna do this over the sink so I don't spill. Drain it. And then we're just gonna put those into another bowl, which technically speaking, I guess we don't have to do. We could just leave it in the can, but half of a 16-ounce can of corn. Now for your rice preparation, we are using a 1-pound bag of long grain rice. And this has to be specifically 1 pound. Or you could measure it out individually and just do 7,486 grains of rice. And just like any other time we cook rice, we're going to want to wash it first. And we want to wash it under that cold water because we want to get rid of all the excess starch and dust that is just hanging out on our rice. Do you see that? It's pretty gross. You don't want that. Just like how I don't want these people to be banging on things outside of my house. It's so loud. Then once that water runs clear after about 4 to 5 rinses, you're just gonna go ahead and strain it off and let it drip out. Now we're gonna cook this all in a high-walled saucepan. You don't have to use this. You can use a Dutch oven. You can use just a large pot. You can use a pan as long as there's enough space for the rice to cook, because it is going to double, almost triple in size, and you don't want it to overflow. That would suck. Start by preheating this on medium-low heat. You don't want it too high because we're gonna cook down those onions and garlic, and we don't want it to burn. We just want it to cook down and get all nice and soft and delicious. And after a few minutes, once that's fully preheated, you're gonna add in just a little bit of your neutral oil, making sure that's coated all over the bottom. Then we're gonna add in our garlic and onion, and we're just gonna cook them down, keeping them moving, letting them sweat for about 10 minutes. Oh, and I almost forgot, you're gonna wanna make sure you salt these while they're sweating down, so that way they gets nice and flavorful. And if at any point during this process you feel like your onions are starting to burn, or worse, your garlic is starting to burn or brown up too much, either reduce your heat or remove it from the heat for a little bit to cool down, and then bring it back on. Now once that 10 minutes has passed, our onions and garlic should be pretty translucent, nice and soft, and very fragrant. At this point, we're gonna go ahead and add in our rice. And then we'll just go ahead and mix that in and start toasting our rice until we get a nice light golden color. If you're impatient like me, you may wanna turn your heat up a bit. It'll go a little bit quicker, but you don't have to. You can still do it the slow way. But fair warning, if you do turn your heat up, you're gonna need to make sure you're really watching it because you don't wanna burn any of that garlic that's still in there because that'll just suck. Now, after another 5 to 10 minutes, or once you've really totally lost all patience with this, you're gonna go ahead and add in 1 can or 8 ounces of tomato sauce. Now you can also just use a couple blended Roma tomatoes, but at 65 cents a can, it's hard to beat the can. Go ahead and carefully stir that in so you don't toss any rice out, but it's nice and well incorporated. And don't worry if as you're stirring this, you're noticing some of that tomato sauce is starting to stick to the bottom. I'd say, okay, it's not gonna burn quite yet, so we're just gonna deglaze with this chicken broth in a second. And 1 second later, we're just gonna go ahead and shake this bottle of chicken broth, well, box, I guess. And you're just gonna pour in about 3 to 4 cups worth. Now, this is dependent on what you prefer. Start with 3, you can always add a little bit more, because if you add too much, it's hard to take it away. If you like your rice on the fluffier side, you're gonna wanna use less broth, but if you like it on the stickier, denser side, then you'll use more broth. I like mine on the fluffier side, so I use 3 cups. Now, before we close this up, we're gonna add in a couple more things, one of which is gonna be a tablespoon of chicken bouillon powder. That's gonna add a little bit of extra flavor and umami to our rice and help make it a main character dish. And the last thing we're gonna do before we button this whole thing up is just sprinkle on our carrots. Those are just gonna sit right on the top, along with our corn. You don't wanna stir these in, you just want them to kind of sit chill at the top. Now, we're just gonna bring this up to a simmer, a
very low simmer.
And then we're going to cover this up and let this cook untouched for 20 minutes. Wait, I forgot to lay in the cilantro. Now, untouched for 20 minutes. This is a perfect time to drink some water or maybe call a friend and do a buddy check, see how they're doing. And now that our 20 minutes is up, we should be able to remove this to see perfect rice. Beautiful. That's exactly what we want to see. It is also very hot. First, we're going to start by removing these cilantro leaves. My cat is having a fit because he also wants some rice. It smells fantastic. Now, using a fork, we're just gonna go ahead and fluff our rice. Look at that color. Mix in all those carrots and corn. Buddy, mom's at work. She's not outside. I know. I want her to come home too. If we just go ahead and open up the center here, we'll see that none of our rice stuck. Now we can just go ahead and remove our heat and we can just taste this. That's so good. I'm gonna add a little bit of salt. You don't have to by any means, but I think a little bit of salt will just take it right over the edge. And after all that very minimal work and a very minimal amount of money, we are left with a very delicious Mexican style red rice that is main character energy just oozing out of it. You just can't beat it. And now to beat that, we're making black beans. Now you're probably thinking, why make black beans when you can just get black beans in a can and they're pretty good as it is? The reason is because these are going to be cheaper and better for a whopping price of... Now for your black bean prep, there really is only 2 things you have to worry about, your onion and your garlic. I mean, it's pretty simple. You're just gonna slice a yellow onion, or again, whatever yellow onion, or again, whatever onion you have access to, cut it in half. Then you're just going to cut off a little bit of that root, just so we don't have any nastiness, and then throw it away. Luca, beautiful. And then we'll just cut off the tip here, and then peel off that outer layer of skin. Done. Now for our garlic, we're gonna do something similar here. I'm actually just going to cut this in half, and then from here I'm going to go ahead and just cut off the tops. Just a little bit, just enough to get some exposed garlic going on. Now for our beans, we're using a 1 pound bag of whole dried black beans. And again, this is something you're gonna wanna be specific on, so if you're not using a pound, then just count out individually. Let's see, it's 1 pound bag, carry the 1, by the divider. You're looking at 12,362, give or take 1 or 2. Now the first thing you want to do with dried black beans is you're going to want to go ahead and sift through them and see if there's anything that sticks out as probably shouldn't be in there. For instance, anything that looks weird, a little wonky, any beans that don't quite fit, you're going to want to just go ahead and toss them. This is also a good time to look for any rocks, because believe it or not, that's a thing you find in dried black beans. It's just a thing. You just can happen to come across rocks. Didn't know that was a thing, but it's a thing. And again, you're gonna wanna rinse these about 3 or 4 times as well, because they, while they're not starchy, are covered in gross dust, which doesn't taste good. So just give them a good rinse. And now here's where that more lengthy part of this cook begins. Now, we did not pre-soak our beans, which means our beans are completely and totally dry, except for the fact that we did just rinse them, but they're still dried beans. They haven't been soaked. Some people will tell you have to soak them overnight, 8 to 12 hours, something like that. In fairness to them, your beans will cook quicker, but that also means you have to plan ahead. And I don't want to assume that you're in a position to plan ahead. And I want to make this as user-friendly as possible. That's also why I'm not using a pressure cooker, which is another way you really can cook these beans very quickly and very effectively. Same thing you can do it with a slow cooker, just the opposite. Instead of being really quick, it's gonna take all day, but it's pretty hands-off. Those are 2 extra items that cost extra money that I'm just don't want to make you feel like you have to have. You can do this in just a pot with water on your stove. Now in your not so fancy but totally effective pot, go ahead and add in your dried beans. That pot is also should be full of water as well. I'm sorry, it should be full of water. Now there needs to be at least 2 to 3 inches of water above the top of your beans and the top of your water, because you want to make sure that these beans do not get uncovered at all during this cooking process, because you want to make sure they can absorb all that moisture. So the second that water line falls below it, it means that those top beans that are not going to get any more water, they're going to be harder and not cook as well as those bottom beans. So make sure they stay covered. I do this personally by just making sure I use a giant pot that I can add a ton of water to. Now it's kind of hard to see on camera, but there are some beans that are just floating along the top. I'm going to go ahead and just grab and remove those, because those beans are either shells or they're just not going to be very good once they're cooked. And so I'm just going to go ahead and pull those out now. I can even tell just by feeling them that those skins are not great. They're not super intact. So bye-bye. We're down 9 beans. Now into our bean water, we're going to go ahead and add in our onion and our garlic. In addition to that, we're gonna add in a couple of bay leaves and a few sprigs of cilantro. Now, once that's all set, you're going to turn on your heat source and you're going to bring this up to a boil. It's a lot of water, so it's gonna take a minute, like a while. And while we wait for this to boil, I wanna take a moment to say thank you. Thank you for watching these videos. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for commenting, liking, sharing these videos with people who might wanna make these recipes or just might wanna watch to be entertained. By doing that, you are supporting me. You are allowing me the opportunity to continue to write recipes and make videos for you guys. I very much understand how lucky I am to be in this position, and I wouldn't be here without you. So thank you so much for watching, liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing, all that stuff. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this community. I love you. And now that our water has started to boil, or really just me becoming impatient and calling this simmer a boil, we're going to go ahead and cover our pot, reduce our heat down to a nice high simmer, a little aggressive simmer, and then we're going to let this run for an hour. Probably gonna need to cook longer than that, but you're gonna wanna start checking it at about an hour. This one is definitely a longer process, but trust me, it is 3 times, 4 times, 6 times, 100 times better than any canned bean you've ever had. And the important thing is, while you are letting these boil down, well, simmer, not boil, you're gonna wanna check on them every 20-ish minutes, because you wanna make sure that that water line has not dropped below your beans. Now, if you are like me and put in an excessive amount of water, you should be just fine. But if your water was a little bit close, then you might wanna check on that a little more frequently. It's just to make sure that your water line doesn't go below, so you don't end up with dried beans. Now, our beans have been cooking for just over an hour now, and so we're gonna start working on our soffritto. This is gonna be the thing that adds all the extra flavor and brings our beans from just like, oh, cool, black beans, to like, oh, sick, black beans. And it starts off with that other half of our yellow onion. Similar to the rice, we're just gonna go ahead and dice this up. And now again, it doesn't have to be fancy, nothing too crazy, just make sure it's relatively even and you will be just fine. Then we'll just push that to the side, and we'll do the same to a nice green bell pepper. Now, it doesn't have to be green, but green bell peppers are the cheapest, so go with green. And really, that's the beauty of these two recipes, is really they can be whatever you want them to be. You can make them super complicated, you can make them as simple as you really want. You can add more vegetables, you can add less vegetables, you can add meats, you can add pulled chicken to both of these, you can add beef, you can add sausage, you can add hot dogs if that's what you have. Like, it's going to be great. That's truly the beauty of it. And now that we're done with the bell pepper, we're gonna move on to a jalapeno, which you do not have to add in if you don't want it spicy. In my case, my wife likes spicy, so I'm gonna make it a little spicy. But remember, this is for you and your family, so feel free to customize it however you like. And the last thing we're gonna cut up here is just our garlic. I just went ahead and cut off the bottoms just to help make it a little bit easier to peel, but I'm actually just gonna end up crushing these 4 cloves into crushed garlic and then chop them up. But you feel free to do it however you like. And again, no shame in using garlic here, or even just garlic powder or dehydrated garlic, whatever you have access to. It's gonna be delicious. You made it, it's gonna be fine. Now again, we're gonna wanna use a deep saute pan, similar to what we use for the rice, but in this case, we're just gonna use cast iron. We're gonna start by preheating this up to medium heat, and because we're using cast iron, this is gonna take a little bit longer, but we really wanna make sure we wait it out so that way it's fully preheated. And then once this is adequately preheated, we're just gonna squirt in a little bit of neutral oil, followed by all those prepped vegetables. And then we're immediately gonna wanna hit it with a little bit of salt. This will help it sweat out a bit, and then just keep it moving. We don't want it to brown or to burn, we just want it to start sweating, similar to what we did earlier. In this case, I'm getting a little impatient, so I threw it up a little bit higher than before. And then after about 5 to 7 minutes, those onions should be nice and translucent, and everything's starting to soften up. We're gonna go ahead and add in our spices, starting with 1 tablespoon of chicken bouillon powder, 1.5 tablespoons of cumin, and 2 tablespoons of dried oregano. And we'll just go ahead and fold all that in, breaking it all up like so. If it starts to get a little too dry, by no means, not by no means, the opposite of that, by any means, not any means. Whatever the words I'm thinking of, feel free to add in a little bit more neutral oil just to keep it nice and lubricated and everything moving around. One of these days I'll be a good YouTuber who knows how to speak real sentences. Alrighty, now that our beans are finished cooking, and you'll know they're finished because when you pull one of them out, you can very easily just smash it with your finger, just like that. Now we're just going to carefully extract those beans using a slotted spoon. And if you happen to find that bay leaf, definitely want to remove that. We're just wanting to move over our beans. So all the onion that we cooked down, the garlic, all that stuff, you can leave it behind. Just move over your beans. A pair of chopsticks really helps to remove all those unwanted things from your scoop, so that way you get a nice clean pork. Now once you've moved over all of your beans, you're just going to start to saute these and cook these down, reducing some of that bean water as you go. And a pro tip here is to be gentle while you're mixing this all together. This isn't refried beans where you want to mash it all up. I mean, you could do that, if that's what you want, but by all means go for it. But this is more of a whole bean situation, so you want to make sure you're not breaking up the beans as much as you normally would with a refried style of bean. As all that bean water evaporates, you can just pour in a little bit more and just start cooking that down and mixing it up. All the starches from the bean water are thickening up to make a nice little thick sauce for our beans. It's going to give it extra flavor and extra density and extra volume. It's going to make it feel more like a main character and less like a side dish. I've added in about 3 scoops of bean juice so far, and I'm starting to get to that consistency I want. So I'm just going to let this cook down and finish up until we're nice and thick. And now once you have these at the consistency that you like, we're just going to finish them up with a little bit of salt, to your preferred taste of course, and some black pepper. With all that said, thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I really hope that you learned something. Here's a photo of me at prom, and I'll see you next week.